order request.
Okay, it has hit 6:30, so I guess we better call this meeting to order. And the first thing we need to do is a roll call. So, Mary Paul, are you here?
Here.
Councilmember
Here.
Villalobos. Councilmember Allen.
Here.
Councilmember Cladd.
Here.
Councilmember Mucker.
Here.
And Mayor Deviney is present. So we do have a quorum. We're all here. And the next thing we're supposed to do is say the Pledge of Allegiance. So if y'all don't mind, there's Jared. He's on top of it. Let's stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible,
Liberty and justice for all.
Thank y'all. We don't want to get out of the habit of doing that. We are eventually going to get together again. That brings us to public comments, and of course we have put out with the agenda and on the web page that public comments would be taken up to noon today, which we did not have any, as I understand it. So, if anything, Zoom is these remote meetings seem to be affecting our ability to have people come in and give us a piece of their mind. So that's one thing that this is not helping us too much for. With that, we will move on to the reports. And so the first thing is the mayor's report. First thing I want to talk about is the census. We are doing pretty bad. We were at 36.5% self-reporting rate as of the 28th, and that compares to the national average of well over 50%, and the state average of right at 50%, and the county average of 43%. And so we really do need to get more people out to go take this. I think we probably got all those who are computer savvy, because it's pretty easy. But if not, there's the web address, and then the phone numbers are listed. They're open from 6 a.m. in the morning till 1 a.m. Central Time each night, and you can do it in English, Spanish, and 11 other languages. So there's no reason not to be doing this. We need to get the word out to our folks. If you talk to any constituents and neighbors or whatever, please urge them to take the census. Moving on to the COVID-19 disaster activities, I sent out a kind of an informational message last week. Hopefully everybody got that, but the county stay home, stay safe order has expired. They're not going to issue another one as of now. The open text order, we sent y'all a link to, actually I think we sent to the PDF that had all that information in it. Allows some non-essential businesses to open. Biggest ones being the restaurants. What I know is that Hermanos down here on Northwest River Road is going to try to open. I think they are open now, taking just a small portion of their maximum capacity in. Highway 80, they had indicated that 25% wasn't enough for them to alter right now, and they're going to wait till the next round. And I have not heard from Shades, so I don't know exactly what their plans are yet, nor from the Martindale, or the San Marcos River Cafe or Martindale River Cafe downtown. I haven't heard from them either, but they all got the information, as did the churches and some of the other businesses in town. The state order left the parks open, but left the playgrounds closed. And of course, we have signs up that tell folks that. That has gotten to be quite a problem, I guess, that's brewing.
Yes, it has.
San Marcos and New Braunfels and all river access they are still closed. We are getting a large quantity of people. Because we're only a week and a half away from potentially a change, I guess San Marcos Parks ordered was good till 5/17, so we're 10 or 12 days away from that.
Mr. Vink, can I say something? I've never seen so many people at our parks and at Skulls Bridge, and I think it's extremely dangerous what we're doing. I don't think we have the law enforcement to do this properly to make sure they do social distancing, because I saw it multiple times and I didn't see social distancing, and actually it was worse than Fentress. And I have talked to Ed Thurio about this issue, and they have concerns also. So it's a problem with the county, and it's getting to be a problem, I think, for us. And I being a senior citizen, I have a problem with this. I think we got some problems here with our parks being open. I don't know what we can do. If we have an additional officer we can put on board to make sure that people are social distancing.
Well, we have gone and focused on that. I guess when you look at the blotter, you'll see the close controls of that picked up at mid-April is when we kicked that into go by every time you
But
can.
if I can say something,
I don't
go ahead.
think we have a police force to do it. Whenever I called several times behind, this Mary Paul, by the way, we are inundated behind our house. When I call, Harry is either on a call doing something else, or he can't come, or he's not on duty, and we don't have anybody on duty. And it becomes a 911 call. I just think we'd be a lot safer closing it down, and that way they wouldn't even come over to where I am. And if they do, I can say that all parks, all areas are closed. You can't even go anywhere around here, so they wouldn't come looking.
Okay, that's good input. I'll have to go do some research on what I mean, I know we can close our own park. We can close Allen Bates, but other river access, I'm not sure we have the legal authority to do that, but I'll go check. I'll talk to Kent, see what we can turn up.
This is,
Okay. I always
I
put it
spoke
close.
with Hoppy and them and told them we had this issue and talked with the Luling folks, et cetera. So I have brought this up a number of times with them, telling them that we will be watching this and we could.
what are some of the other parks doing? This is Jan, like San Marcos, New Braunfels area.
San Marcos reordered or extended their close order about a week ago, a little bit before the end of the month, to 5 and 17 for their river access parks in town. They opened up their trails and their hiking trails and the areas out. So the big park out by the Blanco is open. The one up on Hunter Road that doesn't have a river attached to it is open for people to go to. But the parks downtown and right along the river remain closed till the 17th. And then they'll decide what to go do. New Braunfels 2 weeks ago was still debating what to do about that, but they apparently decided that they were going to remain closed. They're getting a lot of pressure from their tubing companies up in that area to get open. So,
You think that? Do you think that's why we're getting a lot of people in our parks?
Oh, I know. But Harry and the guys have been talking to people, asking them, hi, how you doing? When they're down there checking on social distancing and breaking them up, where they're from, et cetera. And I'd say 90% plus are outsiders. That they're coming.
Gotcha.
We had San Marcos, New Braunfels, but we've had San Antonio and Austin folks in here last weekend.
Wow.
Everything else is closed.
Yep. And the county, I guess Ed was concerned about Fentress because it does have river access. The Luling guys weren't too worried about it, but they don't have they freely admit that they nobody can really get into the river very easy there. So they were about it. The county had indicated they were trying to keep the parks open for exercise purposes, et cetera. And to tell you the truth, if on the 18th the state opens up more social gatherings for sporting events and the like, that they're talking about letting kids play soccer and little league teams get after it again. So
I have a question. So when I'm hearing what we could do about the about the parks, but what can we legally do about Skull?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, we could go post somebody down there and put a big no parking sign up at the top, but that's not going to keep them from driving over to Guadalupe side and parking and doing the same thing. So,
But could we work with the county on that issue?
yeah, I'll go look.
I talked to Ed Thurio last week, and they got also, just to let you know, Texas State Tubes was going to open the 15th, and that's against Abbott's order, which is the 18th for bars. And Ed told me they are not going to let Texas State or Don's Fish Camp open their operations on the 15th. So they're stopped. Like I said, we saw a bunch of people at Fentress. I never seen so many people in our parks, and I'm really concerned this could be the epicenter. I mean, this virus is vicious. Marcy, my girlfriend's a doctor, and she's getting constant updates. She's wearing an N95 vest with PPE. I'm thinking we're really exposing ourselves. I think we really need to get together on this. And if we don't have the force, we need to do something, because, you know, San Marcos, they have river rangers. We only got one officer,
Right.
You know? So I don't know what to do, but I think we could setting ourselves up for a big problem here.
Okay, I'll take that under advisement. We'll go
Thank
work
you.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob. I do appreciate that.
on- Carrying on, we requested and received an account on the FEMA grant portal to allow us to go put in a claim on expenses that are related to the COVID-19 disaster. They were doing a budget update, or excuse me, a software update this weekend before we could actually load our budget, but we're going to try to get that loaded this week. We'll talk a little more about that when we get to the grant stuff here in a minute. From the office's standpoint, we're planning on remaining closed until phase 2 of the state plan has been approved, and then reevaluate what that means whenever it happens, which is, you know, the last plan was for the 18th, May 18th. When you look at that book, the Open Up Texas book that they put out, a lot of the recommendations are to have PPE / procedural activities for employees to protect the incoming public. And one of those things is, you know, you're supposed to take temperatures every morning when people show up for work. So we gotta go work that. We don't have the equipment right now to do that, and it's not easy to come by. But we'll work that between now and the 18th, try to figure out if we can go make that happen. And then something that just happened yesterday, found out yesterday, that's not on the slide that you're looking at, is that Caldwell County about 10 days ago was part of the rural counties that the state sent a testing collection, mobile testing unit to. And so that's why we had a big jump in the last 2 weeks between cases in Caldwell County, is because they more than doubled the number of people that had been tested. And we're going to get another shot at that this weekend. The testing unit will be back on Sunday, the 10th, Sunday the 10th, over in Lockhart again at the middle school. Jared has got the how do you register instructions, but I haven't seen that on the webpage yet, Jared, but he's got it. We're going to try to get that up there. If we can't, or if you want to get a jump on it, you're supposed to be able to go to the county emergency management website. They're supposed to have it directly on the web. They didn't have it there yesterday, and I didn't look at it today. But if not, it is definitely on their Facebook page. So if you're you got a Facebook account, you go to the Caldwell County webpage and go to the emergency management tab, There's a place where you click on it and it takes you to their Facebook page, and you can see what how to register for that and go. The first go round was supposed to be people that had symptoms and doctor's orders. I think they opened it up to just anybody who swore they had symptoms. And they ended up doing 119 tests in the day. They're going to follow that same kind of rule, I think, this go around. So you don't have to have a doctor's orders. If you go in there and say, I think I got it, you can get tested. Now, the test is not pleasant. It is not something that you will enjoy. But if people are worried about wanting to get tested, they certainly can go try to get in that. You got to register beforehand. They'll give you a time to be over there, and you stay in your car. You get there a little bit before your time, and then you wait in line, and they'll pull a car up. And you'll pull the car up to the testing site, and they'll do it through the window, so you don't have to get out or anything. So that came in yesterday, and they are looking for get more people within Caldwell County testing, because that's a big indicator. Okay, that's all I got from COVID standpoint. Jared, that brings us to you for your city administrator's report.
Okay, let me get that set up. Presentation mode wasn't working for me, so I'm going to do it this way. First of all, I want to follow up on the community strategic plan update. As I briefed last month, we had a significant participation, 44 completed surveys and 2 workshops. And as you know, the COVID-19 response reduced our ability to hold more workshops. However, looking at the participation rates, it is roughly equal to 47% of the voting turnout that we had at the last general municipal election. So I think in that sense, it's valuable input, valuable data to draw conclusions from. Even though we didn't get as many responses as we had hoped, I think it still allows us to draw conclusions from the analysis. The data analysis process included identifying broad themes within the data, documented other observations that I thought were important to capture, and then those observations and themes were distilled and categorized based off of similar characteristics and frequency of common responses to identify the most important community priorities, which gets to the heart of our strategic plans, understanding what the most important strategic priorities are for our residents and the associated initiatives that we should undertake. So on the next slide, you'll find that the strategic priorities that were identified through the analysis include maintain community, economic development and planning, management and public services, and infrastructure and public amenities. So think of these as categories or areas to focus our efforts as a government to meet the needs of our citizens. And it's overarching concepts of, within maintain community, the look and feel and character that people have within the sense of community, and the economic development planning is looking at business development and other things. What I want to do is hold a public or council public workshop later this month to dive deep into the report and the strategic priorities and initiatives. What separates priorities from initiatives are the main themes and then the concrete examples of specific actions that the city can take to address some of those priorities. And I've included some examples below that were drawn from the report. That report I plan to provide the City Council by the end of this week. It's currently in review with the academic advisor on the project. As you know, this was done under a client agreement with the university for a capstone project. So that's going through review, and once that's complete later this week, I'll provide the City Council that report and the associated survey responses. So you can see each and every survey response to get access to the full data, draw your own conclusions, and then we can have a discussion over what additional insights you have as city leaders on what other priorities or initiatives you think should be included. So going on to the next steps, submitting the final report, holding a workshop, like to target that for later this month, May 19th, if that's available. And we can talk about that later when we talk about future agenda items. And then develop this strategic community plan and also develop the future year spend plan. So that's kind of an update on where we're at. These priorities and initiatives should sound familiar to you because they're reflective of the residents, and as residents of the city yourselves, these are probably items that you identify with. And if so, that kind of reinforces that these is accurate capturing of the sentiment within the community. So I want to build on that, develop the actual plan, and be prepared to present that to the public in the future. Any questions on the strategic plan update? Okay.
My only comment would be that obviously the analysis and findings slide, those 4 bullets that are under strategic priorities are not in priority order.
No, those were examples. The strategic initiatives, they're drawn from observations of what was in the survey responses, and many of them were proposed by residents. These are not something that we have to undertake. That's where City Council and their leadership gets to craft where those and which initiatives they want to pursue and incorporate into the strategic plan. But this gives you a sense on what sort of feedback was provided in the surveys and workshops.
My only point is I was looking for roads. Well, infrastructure, I assume, is key code for roads, and from everything I know and everything all the inputs you got, that would be number 1, right?
That's correct, sir. Yes.
Okay. That's all I got. Anybody else? Carry on.
Going next to slide 5, website updates. So we have updated recent news and announcements, including we're offering hardship relief for those customers who are experiencing a hardship due to COVID-19 disaster, making available a payment plan if needed. And we've streamlined that process, updated the paper forms, and made it available online. So residents who may have lost their jobs or need assistance in paying their utility bills, assistance in the way of creating a payment plan, not in a monetary form, and submit a request online or by printing out or obtaining a copy at City Hall. It's also a copy is also available in Spanish at City Hall if needed. And then I've also updated an About Martindale website under the community heading tab that provides a brief introduction to the city, its history, and some demographic data from the U.S. Census Bureau. I encourage you to check that out if you're interested. If you have any recommended updates, you can send those along, and they'll be incorporated along with the other website updates, including information on the testing this weekend. Next steps are focused on updating the forms and permit information, billing payments, and adding additional information for our community. Then lastly, one thing I want to touch on is wastewater system updates. So we've talked about this previously. Both pumps at the Martindale lift station stopped working on us. And so we ordered 2 pumps. However, the expected arrival date was 60 days out, and we were paying our wastewater system operator to go out there and flip a switch and stand there for about 2 hours every day, which costs the city quite a bit of money. So to save some costs, we ordered a emergency pump to be installed at the Department lift stations. That's been complete. It has been working. However, we have experienced power issues at that lift station and others. And so we're working with Blue Bonnet to conduct a power study to understand whether we need to install power conditioners or they need to do something on their end to supply clean power. We've had a number of low voltage and other issues, trips with our pumps. So hopefully we can get that resolved here shortly. We also have on schedule to have the generator inspected and repaired, scheduled for this week. A new hoist was received for the pumps at Crockett Lift Station. And there's a number of other, there are a number of other repair items that have been completed over the last month that are fairly significant in cost. Between the new pumps, reporting to these power outages and other issues, including fixing the wastewater treatment plant irrigation system and piping, we're looking at costs of about $8,000 in the last month or so. So we're continuing to perform updates and make system, and those are going to continue. There's plenty more that needs to be done. As far as looking ahead, we're planning to release the next request for quotes. As you know, the current contract expires in September, so we'll be kickstarting that process over the next month and probably posting that request for quotes sometime in early June. That concludes my report, unless there's any other questions. Okay.
All right, so that brings us to the financial reports. And
All right.
Wayne, you're up.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen here real quick. Let's see.
Hey, Dwayne, I have them up if you want to work off my screen.
Okay, well then let me see what you've got up. We need to start with the one that says bank balances.
All right.
It was on its own email separately.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. As you can see, the bank balances at the end of April. The general fund was down to about $9,500 at the end of the month. The street and road fund was at about $4,200, and you see the court restricted and police restricted funds were about status quo. The utility fund had climbed up to $25,000, and that is largely because there was extra funds that had been set aside for the wastewater treatment permit that ended up costing less than planned. So I transferred that money back into the utility fund. You see, let me see here. I'm trying to scroll down if I can. Okay. The investment funds, you see the emergency fund at $207,000 and the PFIA fund at $233,000. Capital fund at $75,268. So I'll be transferring some funds out of the second line item there, the general fund overflow. I have to start transferring money out of that account about every 60 days into the general fund to meet our obligations. And this is by design. The excess funds are put in this account when the property tax money starts flowing in back in December and January. And then you see the amount due the comptroller for excess fines. That's been adjusted for presentation there. The next report is entitled.
Before we get off of that one, Dwayne, Jared, you and I had talked yesterday about that transfer from the PFIA overflow to the general fund, and that report that Dwayne had put behind that to explain why he was doing that. Had some questions, but we really need to go ahead and do that. So I told him to do that today. The report was from last year's period, just to prove that last year we had to do the same thing, is why that had 19 dates on it. So.
Okay. Do I need to come in tonight and sign it?
No, I think this will be a record enough. We just need to make sure we get that signed before we don't want to forget it, so we're out of it. But we
yeah, I'd been waiting for those funds to pay some obligations that had to be done by tomorrow. So yeah, I moved that money this afternoon after speaking to Mr. DeVinny.
Okay, sounds good.
This is Mary Paul. I have a question. Dwayne, where are we with let's see, how can I say this? Comparing our income from taxes from last year to this year, and specifically any kind of revenue we would have received and haven't due to this pandemic.
Well, so far about the only line item, and we'll look at those on the next report.
Okay.
The only line item that's really been affected is the court revenue. The sales tax revenue, that lags 30 to 60 days behind. So we're going to start seeing a fall in that because, sales taxes are remitted on the 20th of the month for the prior month, and then we don't get our money until the 10th of the next month. So like the money that's in this report in April is really from February that was collected in March by the state in March. So we're still a few months away before knowing how that really affects us.
If you, I'd like to request that you let us as a council know how much we have, how much we're lacking or behind due to, I mean, I don't know, maybe you can't say specifically due to it, but where we are compared to where we were last year at this time, as far as tax, income from taxes.
Yeah, I can share that. I don't have it on the report for tonight, but I have definitely been watching it. And so the property taxes are actually ahead of last year, but it's the other minor line items that are going to hurt. So.
Yeah. I don't think property tax would be an issue, but okay. Thank you. I appreciate it, Dwayne.
All right. So now let's look at the.
Wait a minute. I have one more. I have a comment too about the general fund. Last month it was like at 51,000, and this month, so we spent 40 something thousand, almost 42,000 this year. Is that a normal month?
We'll have to look at the vendor list.
Oh, okay.
What we spent the money on, but
anyway, well, some of that might have been what I know. We're doing the accounting. We're having problems with the wastewater.
Yeah, but that's a different fund.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a different fund.
Okay.
That's the utility fund.
That's right.
So,
okay.
Right, so let's look at the general fund budget report. Okay. Here you see that one, and I can't quite see over on the right side. Let me see what the percentages are. Okay. So you see, we should be about, each of these line items should, if they're less than 58%, well, they're behind plan. So you see the third line there, municipal court, is only at 41%. And the next one that's below plan you see down there is investment interest at Tex Pool. That's gone way down. I was posting the interest today. The yield on the Tex Pool investment accounts, that's those big PFIA and the other one, the emergency fund. Those are down. We're going to see decreased revenue from that. Not that really, we don't spend that money. It just rolls back into those funds. So we're not depending on that for cash flow. But you see overall our income is at 82%. But the sales tax revenue you see is at 88%. I mean, even with the downturn, we may end up over plan for that line item, but we will have to start watching that. And hotel tax is way up, but that's all reserved and in a special account. If you go down to personnel, you see that total 6,000 is at 55%, so that's on plan. That's under the 58% of the year's budget. The reimbursement from the utility is at 56, and operating expenses so far are at 43% of budget.
I'm sorry, it's Mary Paul. I wanted to kind of back up just a second. I was on mute and I didn't know it. I was wondering, could you explain to me why the hotel tax is, what does that planned mean? I don't understand that.
When I said planned, budgeted. Yeah, we came up with a budget last year, and
right.
I mean, I knew at the time that we made the budget that we were going to blow that out of the water. But that's the number that, because in the last 2 months of the year, the money really started pouring in on hotel tax. So the numbers you're seeing right here are just this year. If we look back on the balance, bank balance report, you'll see how much of that is stacked up over time. It's like twice that much.
And why do you think that? Where is that coming from?
Well, we've got we've got 2 or 3 properties there that are managed by professional hospitality groups. I'm not sure what to call them, but when I get their sales tax reports in, I see that they're managing 50 other properties, just like the ones that are in Martindale, and those companies are professionally managed and are professionally turning in their revenues.
Okay. So we have more of that now in our area?
Yeah, I think we do. Yes.
Okay.
I only have a year to compare, in my knowledge, but yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. All right. This pandemic will probably make a dent in that.
Yeah. Other than everyone finds out they can still hop in the river in Martindale, it may increase it.
They already know it, believe me.
We needed that.
Okay. So if we go on down to operating expenses, we've already looked at those. Other expenses, percentages are in line there. And then contractual, one line item we've spent a lot on, you see line 8040, janitorial. We've increased our spending there to clean the office because of the pandemic. That overrun is supposed to be reimbursed in this FEMA grant. We're submitting for that.
Good.
Otherwise, you see that line item is at 55%, so expenses seem to be fine. Income seems to be fine, but there are definitely some moving pieces in the income section. And,
right.
Thank goodness we're not nearly as affected as San Marcos is on sales tax revenue. seems like I've read that they're taking like a $50 million hit or something. I forget what the numbers are, but they're huge with the
Wow.
outlet mall being closed down.
Mm.
So we're not to that point yet with our sales tax revenue. The next tab should be, the vendor balance. This is what we've spent money on this month. You see a big one there on the top, the tree doctor. He's been around town. You can scroll on the rest of the way down, I guess, and we can see.
I want to just interject something. I think they've done a great job. I just wanted to say that.
All right. Oh, and there's another big expense. You see the comptroller. That's the state's share of the traffic fines. That $9,000. That's a big thing that would have burned cash this month. Just speaking to Ms. Bunker's questions earlier, and then you can keep on going down and look at other expenses. None of the rest of them really appear to be huge.
Hey, quick question, Dwayne. For Fudge here, what did we pay him to put that gravel in those potholes with the gravel and base? I saw two guys in a trailer and him with a truck. What did that cost us?
You know, I don't recall exactly. I'm sorry. I don't know. You see what we
I can
wrote
tell
in
you, it's
here.
$700.
How much?
700 counts the material.
Don't you think it'd be better? I think we're wasting our money.
Deep that I was afraid we are going to get in trouble damaging cars.
Well, we fix them.
So what we've been doing is the Texas patcher guy, the guy with the spray machine. We get to spread him out more if he doesn't have to fill up the holes so bad. So his recommendation was that when we get real deep ones like that, we go put road base in there, give it a little time to set up, and then come back and let him spray on
Well,
top.
they're already washing out. I've seen after that last rain, some of them are already washed out. We get a lot of rain, it's going to wash all out.
I can't stop the rain.
I think it's a waste of money. I don't know what the rest of you guys think. I think it's a waste of money, personally. It's going to wash out in the storm. I think we should get the guy over there as soon as possible to fill those holes up. Now, if we do it with the road base and they do it soon, I can understand it. But we've been through this before, Mr. Devaney, with Kimberly. We wasted a lot of money putting road base in potholes, you know? That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I guess you can scroll down to the bottom. So that's that report. Okay, the next report should be the utility fund, budget versus actual. And you see the utility income is at 57%. So that's in line. The expenses are at 59. And one thing I wanted to point out, see that line 5080, that miscellaneous income down toward the bottom? That's payments that we're getting in from people that we don't know who they belong to. They're logging into our system, paying a utility bill that we don't know who they are. And that's happening more and more these days. I don't know if eventually I'm going to have to give that to the state or something, but I just wanted to put it on this report so you all can see.
How does it come in if they don't have an account number on it, Dwayne?
That's right. They'll have a name, but you know, maybe it's a tenant that we don't know where they're living, or you know, maybe it's somebody's boyfriend or girlfriend paying. You know, we do our best. We work with the water utility to see if they can help us, but these are what are left, ones that we just can't identify. So, and then if you scroll on down to this other expense, you see that negative 8485. That's a negative expense or an income. That's that money that came back in from the overflow fund from that permit that we that we saved on that process. That's why there's such a net income there at the bottom of $9,400. It's mainly from that money transferring back in. So the next tab, I guess, is going to be the vendor payments there. So, you know, that's the expenses for the utility fund. That Zone Industries at the bottom, that's one of those pumps that Jared talked about earlier. I think the other one is maybe in May, unless it's up higher. You see that wastewater transport service? That's one of those people that he was talking about. We were having to pay to pump out the lift station while the pumps were down. So, but I think the majority of that expense was back in March, actually. Okay. Any questions on that? I think now the next one is, I think that may be it on the.
I would like to just ask something before you move along. It's like, how can it be rectified to know who's sending in the payments? Like, is there anywhere when somebody is submitting a payment that you could ask them for their account?
You know, I've tried, possibly, you know, and one of the things I'm trying to do is modernize the billing system to where people are actually paying a bill and they're not just logging into a website where they can put anything on it. Where they can, and, you know, I received a demo on a system this week. You know, that would be my suggestion, but it may be as simple as requiring an account number before we accept a payment. That might be something that we could try to enforce. I'm not sure why that hasn't been done yet.
I think that the eventually we're going to get out of kilter. Somebody's going to say, I paid that bill, and we're going to say, no, it still shows you're delinquent. And they're going to show up with a receipt and say, no, look, here, this is where I paid it, and we can straighten it out, hopefully. But
yeah, and I'll go over here and look in the kitty and say, yeah, sure enough, we see here's your money. I think it's kind of a common problem.
I've reached out to the current vendor, CP Teller, who manages our utility payments, to try to get them to provide actual billing information as part of the login experience. Instead of, as Dwayne called it, you just kind of get on the website and you can send us money, but there's no linking it to an actual bill. That's one of the things I've been trying to follow up on for the last couple of weeks.
And then I feel like even what's more concerning is you're not getting an actual receipt showing that your bill was paid.
You do get a confirmation.
You get a confirmation?
Mm-hmm. They get a confirmation.
I think it comes back
and
by
actually,
email.
Actually, there is an area there that they have to put in an account number. And we have seen a way different account number. So I don't know if they don't realize that they're paying the city of Martindale. Maybe they think they're paying the water company, but we haven't figured that out. Carmen has gone, she has also called the water company, and those names do not match their book either.
We've also checked the list with the court to see if some people are paying us for their traffic tickets, and that was not the case either.
Hey, hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Whoever is watching TV or has a television in their space, it's messing everything up. It's very difficult to hear with your TV going on in the background. Thank you.
Okay, and I believe that is that's the financial report for the month through 7 months of the year.
all right, that brings us to the court report.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Jared, for putting that up. Everybody can see the numbers there. They're way down as to be expected. All the reports, state reports are filed. You'll see if you want to, the exact reports will be reflected on page 2 and 3 of the document that Jared is showing you right now. Until this is over and until we can resume collection efforts and start issuing warrants again, you know, these are the lowest numbers the court's ever had by a factor of about 3. So, I mean, they're horrible.
Tony and Kent, I don't know which one knows it, but what I remember is the 18th was the restart update, unless the Attorney General does something different. So,
yeah, I think that's
verify
right.
that.
Is that right, Kent?
I think that's right.
Okay. All right. They have been sending out, you get so many orders from the OCA and from the Court of Criminal Appeals and the Texas Supreme Court, and trying to keep up with all of them is crazy. The last one they sent out yesterday dealt with in-person non-essential settings. And they were saying that beginning June 1st, and this is of some concern to us also, that they were going to allow non-essential in-person, that the courts may conduct those subject to certain limitations. And of course, that's June 1st, and we could, you know, receive 4 or 5 more orders between now and then. But yeah, assuming if the 18th is the day, then we'll just wait and see what happens before then. But, you know, and I'm also, you know, looking at what other courts are doing as far as that. I mean, our revenues are revenue, but the last thing we want to do is be looked at as, you know, that court that was going after everybody in the middle of a pandemic while everybody else wasn't. So, but that being said, you can see what the citations are. So it's a function of both of those, the collection activity and the citations. And like I said, this is the lowest numbers that we've never had anything even close to this since I've been here for the last 7 years. So. Does anybody have any questions? I'll do my best to try and answer them.
Hey, Tony, this is Jared, and we can follow up offline, but I was wondering, we're using the 18th as our court date on ticketing. At what point do we need to change that date? And will we start sending out rescheduling notices to those people who received a violation ticket?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. And we'll have to wait. I imagine that they'll be releasing other orders between now and then dealing with the collection efforts, because right now, as it stands, all the deadlines are extended. So you give the citation all day long, but your initial appearance date is not going to mean anything. So all we can do is just, I mean, I'll stay on top of it, obviously, but you've got, we're just waiting for further guidance on that. Okay, because all the deadlines, I mean, everything is part of that, as part of the pandemic. I mean, they extended deadlines for everything up to and including statute of limitations on civil cases, which I have never known to happen. And so, you know, so you're looking at that, the initial appearance dates, you know, when the ticket is due by, and also enforcement and collection, what they're going to say about that, about going after people, resuming collection efforts, soft collection efforts, like over the phone, hey, you know, we're going to issue a warrant, and of course, actually issuing the warrant. So, you know, but I'll stay on top of that, and of course, you know, and we'll keep in touch, and as more information becomes available, then we'll decide, you know, as a team, you know, how best to proceed on that.
Thanks.
All right, that brings us up to the police blotter report. You can see, I guess Harry's not on the line. He was going to try to call in, but didn't know if he was going to be able to do that. I guess the key here is that if you look down around 416, we started close patrols of the river access and the parks and the like, and that's where There was like over 40 of them done in the last 2 weeks to go off and try to address the issues we talked about earlier.
Mr. Vinny, I got a question. I see Harry all the time, patrolling. And this last weekend, I didn't see any Martindale police. I don't know if I was in town for 2 days, and I didn't see the car. I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but it didn't seem I didn't see any officer about. I mean, usually Harry's always there, so that's my question.
Yeah, so I'll take that one if I may, Mayor. So we do have patrols scheduled for Saturday. We did not have one scheduled on Sunday.
Why not?
Saturday was I'd have to look at the actual schedule to see what the hours were, but we did have patrols on Saturday. In the case where we do not have a police officer on patrol, the non-emergency line or even 911, their dispatch service works with our county sheriff and to respond to calls even within the city.
Okay. Let me bring something up again. I talked earlier. That makes sense then, because I didn't see anybody, and we've got our parks inundated with out-of-towners, and we don't have police officers. This is the most critical time for us to have police officers. And again, that has to be concerned that our public's not being protected. I mean, especially at this time with the coronavirus, you guys are quarantined. I'm quarantined. And we got people running free at the park. We don't have officers checking for make sure they have social distancing. So what are we going to do to prevent this from happening again? I know we have a new officer here. I don't know what. Can you explain why we didn't have an officer on Sunday?
I can.
Huh?
I said, yeah, I can.
Why don't you go ahead and explain it to me, sir?
All right. We had three officers that are filling in for one. That adds up to 40 hours. One of those was an officer whose wife had come in contact with a potential COVID-19 infected person.
Okay.
We heard about that. We shut him down, and he was not available. He was
Good move.
on Sunday.
Good move. If you could inform council of this, because I have questions when I don't see police officers. I have concerns, especially in this time period. So if you could just tell us that, that's fine. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
All right. He was out all last week. He'll be out this week, and then we'll have him back. And he's one of the ones that's supposed to do stuff on the weekend.
So again, that goes back to our park situation. What are we going to do to protect our public? We're in this is a bad situation. I don't know how the rest of the council feels about this, but this is the worst possible time not to have police officers patrolling that. And I'd also would like to have the officers maybe do some kind of documentation with their cameras or something. This is critical, guys. I don't know how you guys feel about this. I mean, we talk about this quarantine and the government, and this is, to me, it's a big issue. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I'm 65 years old. I don't want to contract this stuff. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
What?
Moving on. We got anybody else got anything on the blotter?
Yes, this is Mary Paul, and I've had to call Harry several times and not gotten him one time. When I couldn't get him, I had to dial the dispatch, and then it took them a long time, but because they have high needs, more of a 911 than people congregating. But in my opinion, I tend to agree with what Mike's saying, is that it is, we've got to take this serious. And if we see it, we need to report it. And we need to get our officers out there taking care of it. And if we don't have someone, then it'll have to be the sheriff. And I just wish that, and I know, Mr. Davini, I know that you're going to consider all of this, and hopefully, possibly, will close all of the park area, because this is serious, and we need to do all we can do. But thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
Is there Mayor Davini?
Yes, sir. Ma'am.
I just wanted to ask, Is there, between the three, because I know that now we have 3 officers, correct?
We have
4.
2 full-time officers made up of 4 people, 4 names.
Okay, so we have 4, but just the way that they're scheduled isn't like every day of there's not coverage the whole time, right?
No, there was.
Okay.
When was that?
Lisa, were you trying to get in?
Yeah, I just said, when was it that we did have full-time coverage?
Probably, I don't know, back in the teens, not even the teens,
Oh.
back in the 2000s.
I thought you were talking recently.
No, we've never had full-time coverage. I guess we had three police officers back in 13 and 14. That I don't know exactly when we went down to 3, but certainly since then there's never been full-time coverage ever.
But you know, I'm just thinking during like critical times, like weekends or kind of busy. And then our accidents that we've been having in Martindale, they're like Dukes of Hazzard accidents. Like somebody plowed into the Catholic church sign, you know, not to mention what they did with the store. It's my understanding that there was those are drunk driving incidents. So there's drunk drivers.
Actually, there was none of those were drunk driving incidents.
The one at the store wasn't a drunk driver?
No, they fell asleep at the wheel 5:30 in the morning going home.
And what about at the Catholic church?
No, he was on his cell phone. Came running through the light full speed.
But the one that wrecked into the bridge, now that was a drunk driving incident.
What bridge?
Quail Run.
No, that was a out there on Highway 80.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I believe that one was. Yeah, the one that took out the sign there at the feed barn was from a standing start. And the 2 that ran into the packing sack one was parked and went straight into the wall. The other one was the kids who fell asleep on the way home, and the one this past weekend was guy coming from Lockhart, and for whatever reason nobody could understand, went right through the light and at a high rate of speed. And I mean, he was, I can't believe he wasn't impaired, but the ticket he got was not for drunk driving, or it was for the use of, not paying attention.
And I was just going off of information that I received from a congregation member. So maybe it was just so bad they thought, but but that's good to know that they weren't buzzing.
It's hard to believe that a person could come screaming through the light and get that far down the road before he won't recognize that he was doing something crazy. But
hey, Mayor,
it was at 3 o'clock in the morning, by the way, so I don't know who was there from the parish that day.
So then from the report, from what it's showing, it shows there's been no citations other than the citation for the loose dog.
There have been
Correct.
I don't have it memorized. Here, look through that thing, see what's on there. We have
I think it's only been for the dog.
Now on 418 there was a reckless driver northbound from Fentress. Chris took that one. Most of the other stuff in here I think is
But usually it would say citation or whatever, wouldn't it? Because on here it looks like for the whole month of April that there was only one citation was written. Well, if that's what it was, then that's what it was. But I was just making sure that I was reading it right.
If I remember correctly, it's normally on the blotter, it doesn't list how many times they wrote a citation unless it is for something non-vehicle related.
Yeah, we never just put every citation on there.
Okay.
And I don't know if that 418, that ATL reckless driver northbound from Frenchers was a citation. That probably wasn't a citation. That was, he was chasing an ambulance that had a family member in it that had a gunshot wound. And we stopped him and said, hey, you can't do that. We may have just given him a warning. Any other questions on the blotter?
No,
All right, going on to boards and commission. We don't have anybody on board from the historic commission, do we? I don't see anybody.
You had Carlton, but I'm not sure if he's here to. On their behalf.
The Parks Commission is not here. Planning and zoning, Lisa, you got anything you want to talk about there?
just to let everybody know, I still do get calls and emails and inquiries in regards to property that's for sale or actual property owners wanting to know what they can do with their property, as far as whether it be building a guest house or several RVs for short-term rentals. So that was actually the most recent inquiry just the other day. So that just brings me to a reminder that I've brought that forth before and feel like it is really important that we, whatever it is that we need to do in our ordinances, we need to make certain that we have those bases covered. We as a council, we as a city, determining what we want allowed in the way.
Lisa, you might want to check your mic. I'm not hearing you very well.
Okay. I'm not sure why, other than
Stand verbally. I can't understand.
When you moved up closer to the computer, you could hear you better.
okay.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, so I'll just repeat that there are a lot of calls that I get. Folks are inquiring where and what they can do on their property, whether they've purchased it or not, or they already own it. Most often it revolves around short-term rentals. So that brings me to the point that I feel like from a ordinance direction, we need to be proactive. We need to figure out what we as a city and what we as a council want to allow and where when it comes to short-term rentals. And if anybody has any questions, I'll gladly help try to fill that in.
Maybe we should have a workshop on that.
I think we should. I really do.
Okay, I agree.
Like
Yeah, short-term
Lisa.
rentals came up in the strategic plan responses. Some respondents were concerned about the number and location of short-term rentals and degrading the sense of community because now they don't know their neighbors. You don't have that same neighborly atmosphere. So that might be something we can talk about in the context of strategic plan, in terms of an initiative or study we want to do, or if we want to adjust it, as you suggested, through ordinance, we can also have a separate workshop for that.
Right, and it's to the city's advantage that we create whatever ordinances and regulations that we do want to happen and where. Otherwise, if the ordinance says that you cannot do it, if it doesn't say you cannot, then does that mean you can? So that's some questions that have come up.
Are you talking about like for a short-term rental in itself, or like what context are you talking about a short-term rental?
Like
with the property, where its location?
Yeah, the locations. I mean, I fielded a situation just yesterday or day before where somebody was asking about a property that's for sale in R1, and the potential buyer wanted to know if he could put several RVs for short-term rentals on that property. I let it be known that in R1, that's not an option. But it just brought it back up to the top of mind that this is something that people are wanting to do. You know, they want to know, how long can I have my RV that I personally own set up in my backyard and a water hose connected to it? Well, I feel like we all almost need to create some type of informational packet or something that we can give over to folks, or to better educate our current residents as to what it is they can and cannot do, or I should say should or should not do.
Okay, so just in that, I'm gonna ask you, like, aren't STRs, aren't they for business? Aren't they a business?
Yes and no. You can have a short-term rental in R1, residential, single family, detached. You do not have to be classified as commercial to do that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but I just think there's some things that are conflicting there.
Well, and it's one of those things where the activity, supposedly the activity that goes on, say you have a guest house in your backyard and you have guests who happen to be paying you come and stay for 3 or 4 nights. Well, the number of guests is only how many people can be accommodated in that dwelling. So we did decide that as far as our billing goes, if in fact you have more than 4 units on your property, that's what changes you over to commercial as far as our utility billing goes. So if you live in R1, like where you live or where I live, you have a guest house, you go through Airbnb, or you go through any of the other management companies, and you only have 1, you can do that with a specific use permit in R1. Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
And there's nobody from the river board here, I don't believe. I don't see them on the list. Going once, going twice. All right. That brings us to consent items. Sylvia had put in there several meeting minutes. There's a few grammatical / typos that need to get corrected, at least on the February 4th minutes. How do we want to do that? What are we allowed to do? Can we just generally say we're going to correct the
You can, Mayor, they can approve them with those changes. And what I will do is that I'll go in tomorrow, and what will happen is that I'll go in and mark through it and then underline the change. And then you can sign it.
Kent, that's okay?
No, perfecto.
What's that?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
So do we need to go over those tonight, or can we just say we're going to go correct the ones that we spot?
Are all of them non-substantive?
Yes.
Yeah, just we don't need to go over them one by one.
Okay, good. Then
So when we make a motion, do we have to say
With corrections. Just
with the corrections done later?
Yes, and then I will, like I said, I will presented to the mayor with those corrections, with a line over the typo, and then the next to it will be the corrected word with an underline on it, underneath it.
Okay.
Okay, so we need a motion to pass the consent items.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from March 10th,
I'll second.
December 10th, 2019, February 4th, 2020, as presented.
I thought I was gonna have to,
And what about the accounts payable
I'm gonna amend that motion because that is correct. We need to,
with corrections done later?
Corrections.
Yeah.
so amending that motion, I'll make a motion that we accept all of the minutes that as presented. That will include the corrections that will be made for typographical errors, as well as accounts payable as presented.
I'll second.
So we're gonna have to do the roll call thing here, so. Mike, yay or nay?
Yay.
Jan
Yay.
and Mary,
Yay.
was that a nay?
That was a yes. I agree.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank y'all. Okay, Jared, now let's move on to agenda item 7.1. This is yeah, back. There we go. Right there. Okay. So, of course, as we got into COVID-19 and all the activity that got ginned up on how you could go get some grant money to help you offset the cost of the COVID disaster, we were also being inundated by calls from the Caldwell County Hazard Mitigation Plan folks who we'll talk about that in a minute, and also got a cold call from some of the Langford people that said that the FEMA money from the floods of 15, 16, and 17, the additional money that they got from the Trump administration is now gotten into the point where they're going to start doling that out. And with all of that going on, I tried to go, I mean, it all gets intertwined. And so I said, I got to do something to figure out where we are and how we go address this. And so these 5 things that you see in this chart are all grant opportunities, some of which we need help on or is recommended to go get a management company to help us, some of which we've talked about doing for our own benefits in years past, et cetera. And the last one is this grant that the county's actively received and in pursuing, but it has an impact on sites in the city. And so I've tried to go limit those. They interact with each other sometimes they don't, and I'll try to explain all that as we go through this. I've tried to, but the key parts are the A, B, C, D, and E on your left. So please have those in your mind or be able to refer back to them or something. The first one, of course, is this COVID thing. It's done by FEMA. The city basically is in control of putting all the appropriate information in through their portals, and we're trying to learn how to do that and go do that. B and C are tied to FEMA or original money that goes through either a hazard mitigation path or some of the, actually I don't know how much of the state's involved in that one. The CDBG stuff is tied to the original FEMA money, but the state is administering that. And of course, the Texas Park and Wildlife is D. That's one that they put out every year. And the E is the GLO activity. So go to the next one, next slide, please, Jared. So to maximize our eligibility for some of these, they recommend that we get a grant management team to do that. And those are for items B, C, and maybe D. The selection process for that is well defined by FEMA and the State Office of Land Management. So we got to follow those rules to go do that. One of the first things that we have to do is we have to go select a management company. And that process is similar to any professional hires like attorneys or engineers or whatever. You don't do it based off of money, you do it based off of qualifications. And so we have to go out for bids, and we're taking bids on this, and we did that in the paper to get this thing rolling last week. And I don't remember exactly when those are due, but when we do get the responses, we need to have a selection review committee that down selects that. And so we think we want to do that with a 5-member committee, which you see 3 members have already been addressed on. And it's important that we make sure that Jared and Dwayne are on there, because we need the continuity for this. Our issue is that we seem to do one of these all the time, and my question to them was, to the grant folks, was, when do these things run out? But they don't seem to have an expiration date on them, but they do seem to be specific to a grant type. So type B and C off that chart, we don't have one in the cooker that satisfies that. So we have to do it if we're going to go after those 2 grant types. And we need to be able to span election cycles. So we need to make sure Jared and Dwayne are in on this. But we have 2 openings. And so what I need tonight is I need some volunteers and or some suggestions on how we fill those openings, and a motion to go make that happen.
I have a suggestion. Correct me if I'm wrong, Councilmember Paul, don't you have grant experience?
I do have grant experience, but that's, grant writing. But yes, the answer is yes.
My point was that having someone on the panel to review the qualifications that come in, having someone on there that has some experience with that area is a good thing. So I think you would be good at it.
I don't know if I'll be good at it, but I know I have experience and success. So,
well,
and
volunteer.
I don't. What all would it entail? That's what I'm not clear on this whole.
Okay, the process will be that we have called for them to send in their qualifications document. It's a pretty thick thing that you got to read, and it has a lot of, they tell you what they've done before and give you different testimonials, I guess, from satisfied customers. And we saw some of this when we were doing the FAST grant activity I saw some of this from last year or last summer when we were trying to line those folks up. The selection committee will take those. We'll have to do a little reading. Then we get together and they give us a rubric that says you got to score them in these. I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 or 5 different categories. I think there's 4 categories. And basically you score each one, and then you get together and sort of down select and pick one as a group. So it'll be some reading. It'll be trying to score things up, and then gather up with however many come in and talk about it with this team.
I'll volunteer.
We're scoring people who are is it companies or people who are interested? Companies who are interested in fulfilling these grants.
Right.
Did I hear that correctly?
It is companies, it is grant management companies like Langford.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Okay. Now I see. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So basically when you're reading their qualifications and their experience and their referrals from other people, when you're reading that information, based on the fact that you have experience with grants, you would understand the language, you would understand it better. They're not sealed, are they, Mayor? This is not a seal.
No.
So,
No.
yeah.
Our process, I don't think we should do that necessarily as a team. I don't think we go sit around and kick around. I would rather, the process I see is that we get them all in, we make available to read them all, you score it as an individual, and then at that point in time, we bring the ranked selection in and talk about it as a group and come to a consensus on who's number one or number two, or who we want to select. And that's
right. Based on rubrics, right?
well, they're not very detailed.
Yes, it is based on a rubric. You fill out the rubric, you create a score, and that's how it's evaluated.
Right. Okay.
Well, like
That's
I said,
how
I'll volunteer if there's a spot open. I've dealt with Judy Langford on that. There's one we're trying to get for the park. So if nobody else wants it, I'll throw my name in the hat.
All right, Mike, Mary, anybody else want to throw their name in yet?
I don't want to, but I do have some questions. So some of this grant management company, they're going to be the ones to determine who qualifies. Are they going to search out people who qualify, or
they're going to write the grant
where the needs are?
They're going to probably write the grant.
They're going to write just one grant for A, B, C, and D.
When we get to the next page, I'll show you some of the.
Okay, now once we get the grant, do we use the emergency funds to pay for it and then get reimbursed once we've been okayed for the grant? Is that how it works?
It depends on the grant.
Oh, it does? So if it's a FEMA, that would be emergency, right?
Could be, yeah.
Huh?
Could be.
It could be.
They're all
Okay. All right, that's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, we'll go over some of the details on the individual grants when we get to the next page.
Right. Okay.
Okay, I got Mike and Mary down and no other volunteers, and so that fills us out. So can I? Don't think we need a vote. I just needed to have some volunteers. So there we go. I got it. Everybody's happy and everybody knows what's going on. Go to the next slide, Karen.
I thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Mike and Mary.
What was that?
I just was thanking Mike and Mary for
Oh,
volunteering.
yeah. We will make their life miserable. That's a joke, by the way. So the next two slides talk about those groupings that we said at the beginning. Were A. So the A is the COVID-19 grant. We think our best guess is somewhere between maybe $10,000 and $15,000 total, depending on how long this goes and how long we have to go do it. It's got the bullets are there to show you kind of the different groupings that go in there. This is one where we pay up front and they give us money after the fact. So there's no sharing of funds. We spend the money and they give us 75% of what they agree is allowable, and so that's what we're chasing after that. But the amounts are relatively small, so we don't think we have. So far, we haven't had to dip into any kind of emergency fund activity for that.
Will these people help some businesses in town?
No, this is directly for us. The PPP grants were, the businesses had to go in for that. Plus there's some local countywide grants that I've passed on to the businesses and other stuff. But this is money for the city that
gotcha.
offset the kind of cost that you see up there in those bullets. And this management company won't have anything to do with
yes.
that grant.
Okay.
Next one was the hazard mitigation plan. Now, if y'all recall, about a little over a year ago, the county and other organizations within the county, being it emergency service districts, the city of Luling, I believe the school district was in there, other municipal kind of organizations all pooled together to go utilize a grant to write the hazard mitigation plan. We participated with that, and they finally got it written and approved by everybody that had to get approved by outside of the county. About a month and a half ago. And so the next step in that is if we're going to be eligible for money that comes from hazard mitigation plan grant money, we as a city have to pass a resolution that we adopt this plan. Now it's about 263 pages long, I believe. Hence, we have not pushed it out there totally. I can't remember. We may have forwarded that. If not, we can, but it's certainly not something we're going to want to print 25 copies of and hand out. So we can go do that. But this is one of the ones that the grant management company would help us with. And as far as what's in that, as part of that writing that plan, we the city and other organizations had to come up with actions that we would want to go, projects that we would want to go off and accomplish with the money that's made available for this. And there's 3 of those there that we put in the plan. One of them is getting road closure gates for our river crossings within the city, which is Skull Road and Johnson Street. That was our item number 2 on the list, or in the list. And it was ESD number 3's number 8. So we would be, I think it would makes a stronger statement when we write the grant to go ask for that if it's coming from 2 different organizations within the county. Another one was road drainage improvements, and that's just us, and it has to do with some of the same low spots that we have throughout the city that you're familiar with. And then there was a debris removal action that was on there again from the city and from ESD number 3 as part of that. So those are the kind of things that this grant writer would go in and write for. And there's a certain number of inputs that are allowed through this. I believe the total was 10, but it's not 10 by any city. It's I think two straight from the city, just with the city, but then you get some more if you're partnering with other entities within the county, and it gets a little complicated. And I don't know if these are shared money or not. I don't know the answer to that. My gut tells me I think that these are, we have to put up a portion of the value of the activity. We have a city portion we would have to make, but I don't remember that for sure on this. So the B is one of the ones that we're lining up with this grant proposal to go off and go do. And it requires, to get into B, we have to pass the resolution we're going to get to at the end of all of this. So Jared, go to the next slide. Okay, group C is FEMA money for the old floods. It's a big pile of money, and these are competitive grants. But Miss Bickford from Langford had said that she's the one that put us onto this. She says these things are 100% funded. These are, we don't have to share money on these. They will bring it all. And so the area and the key to this was, I asked her, I said, what our real need is some road drainage issues. And so it's located, the ones that we've identified is located at 403 Northwest River Road. Mike, you ought to know that area pretty well. 105 Northwest River Road is right there by Creighton Spruill Cemetery and Madison Street and all of that goes underwater. Mr. McDonald has shown me where on Main Street in FM 1979, it goes underwater every time they get a pretty good sized rain, but it drains real fast, but it needs some work. And then the intersection down there where we that Northwestern Road and Quail Run that keeps getting damaged by people running off into the ditch needs some work too. And that one's last on the list because it's not purely drainage related, but the others are all flood/drainage related activities. And so we're hoping to go get those done. And then item D was the one that we talked about back last year in September, October, about a Parks and Wildlife grant that can go in and help us with our parks. And there's 5 items about things that can happen there. This one also would be a shared money grant. They'd give us a portion of the money. However, if and I think that it will happen, but if Gary recovers after COVID and they get back to normal operations, we can get an awful lot of our share out of the intern program out there to where they will come in and provide a lot of labor to actually do the work to go put in trails and concrete work, etc. That will offset our portion of that. So it really makes it affordable to the city to go those. So that's that. I wanted to share that with you. That's kind of the direction we're headed with all of these grants. One of the things, the keys that we have to have though is on the next slide. That is the to be eligible for number B for sure, and it will also flow into C and maybe D, is to get a grant management company. And to be able to do that with the hazard mitigation plan, part of that, we have to pass a resolution. And it is, we have it up, don't we, Jared? There we go. So they gave us this resolution. It's the one that all the different organizations that are doing this throughout the county are using. We just changed the name to protect the innocent here. And I can read it over the line if we want. There's lots of whereases. Well, let's go down to the therefores, and we'll do that. So now they're resolved. The Caldwell County Hazard Mitigation Plan is approved in its entirety. The City of Martindale will pursue available funding opportunities for implementation of the proposals designated therein, and will, upon receipt of such funding or other necessary resources, seek to implement the actions contained in the mitigation strategies. The City of Martindale vests with the mayor the responsibility, authority, and means to inform all parties of this action, assure that the hazard mitigation plan will be reviewed at least annually, and that any needed adjustments will be presented to the City Council for consideration, and the City of Martindale to take such other action as may be reasonably necessary to carry out the objectives of the plan, and report on progress as required by FEMA and the Texas Division of Emergency Management, TDM. So, if y'all agree, I need a motion to approve this resolution.
I so move.
I'll second.
It was Sonia.
And Lisa seconds.
All right, Mike.
Yo.
That's a yay. Jan.
I say yes.
And Mary.
Yes.
All right, no nays, so it passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, and that brings us to the last item of discussion actions, and that is it's time to get rid of some records. So if you study our ordinances, Chapter 30 of the city ordinances cover the records management activity. Section 30.29C requires council approval when we are ready to proceed with document destruction. So we got to have approval from y'all to go off and get rid of this stuff. We have currently got boxed up 11 boxes of court records and 33 old books, all of which are 2012 and older. We have assigned the appropriate record numbers and made the required destruction record, which is right now is a kind of just a spreadsheet looking thing. And plus, we got one box of general records, which are actually old time sheets from 2002 or older of the police officers that were here back then. And so there's a total of 12 boxes and 33 books that we want to go get rid of. And there will be some more coming up because we have a bunch of accounting kind of records out in the storage shed to go back to pre-2010 actually, that are ready to go now. They're past their retention date, but we haven't got all the documentation on them, but it's coming. The manner of destruction that we've currently got planned is engaging an on-site shredding service. Basically, Dwayne has the most experience with this, but you call these folks and they show up with a big truck that looks like a TDS kind of truck with a shredder on it, and you just take the boxes and the books and you chunk them in there and they get ground up. So anybody got any questions about any of that?
I do.
I do too.
First of all, I want to say thank you for making the consideration and following through with using some type of professional service to destroy the records properly. I don't know that it's always been done that way, and so I appreciate that effort. The other thing that I would like to just weigh in on is that what I'm hearing is that this is all court records and timesheets in this particular section, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So to just throw it out there, when we get to the place, as you say, there are more coming. What are our guidelines on anything that involves any of our maps, any of our wastewater line information, easements, any of platting subdivisions, any of that stuff? I'm currently aware of some issues, and so I'm glad this item came up. I certainly would not want for things to be destroyed that need to be used.
Yeah, we're being really pretty cautious with that. I'll let me speak to that. The Texas library guys are the ones that are charged. One of their divisions is record retention, and they have a guideline, a very detailed list of all the kind of different records. And when you look at it, it becomes very overwhelming if you just say, "Oh my God, look how many of these things there are." But that is what in our ordinance we adopted, was to use their recommended listing. And so we are addressing your concern by when we get a box and we say, okay, what's in this box? We screen through it and make sure we tie to those individual record types, and actually put a cover sheet on the box stating what's in there. And so the process of reviewing the boxes is what keeps you from doing what you just said you were worried about us doing. And,
right. And then the other element of it that I know also in years past we've talked about, the notion of record retention in general and scanning documents so that we don't have to keep the hard copies. I don't know that that's something that we do, if that's protocol, if that is in our protocols. Jared, is that something that you have taken on?
Yeah, we've reached out to the Texas State Library, as Mayor mentioned, asked them for guideline. They published a pamphlet publication that describes the requirements of a electronic records database and what needs to be included in that. They let me know that they're in the process of updating that, and they anticipate publishing an update to that soon. I inquired about whether our current web hosting service provider, their document center solutions satisfy those requirements, and they were unable to answer that directly. So, which is unfortunate. We also have physical storage issues where they have requirements for physical storage facilities, and the shed in the back may not align with those physical storage requirements. And so there's certain, yeah.
Just a quick question. When we were using the storage facilities in the silos, did they meet requirements, or
No.
do we rent? What is the requirement?
So the requirement that is specifically addressing the issue is being 5 feet above the 100-year base flood elevation.
Oh, as in not in our current location.
Not in the current location. So we'd have to find something off-site away from City Hall to store those records, and to use a private records, storage facility. There's another set of requirements that go into that, and we're trying to understand what those are regarding access to records and 24/7 and conditions that they must be stored in. And so as we're seeking direction on electronic records, we're also trying to seek direction on, are there any pre-approved vendors who provide physical facilities to store the paper records while we have them. So.
All right. Well, I just want to say that this is of interest to me. It always has been. And if there's any type of additional research, or if we, put together a committee or a task force or what have you, I certainly would like to work with you, Jared, to make certain that we get the information that we need and we do it properly.
Sounds great, because right now I'm using the mayor as my task force. He's the one going through all the boxes.
Yeah, no, I get that, and it can be quite overwhelming. And so I definitely, as somebody who's seen a lot over the last 13, almost 14 years, it needs to be done right. So I look forward to out in that process.
Yeah, as you may recall, last fall, I think November council meeting, I provided an update that I met with a private records management consulting service, and they would provide services to come in and evaluate all our records, rebox them, retag them, and destroy old records. They came in about $6,000 as their estimate for the amount of records that we had. And at the time, the decision was made to, let's see what we can do in-house. And so by in-house, we now have volunteer efforts led by the mayor. So if you want to volunteer your time and services, I'm sure we'll take the help.
Just loop me in and know what I can do, and that is certainly something that I feel is important.
All right.
Somebody else out there had a question. I don't know who it was.
It was Jan. Yeah, I was just wondering, so I guess it depends on what the record says on how long we're supposed to keep them. I noticed you're talking 8 years out, keeping what we've had the last 8 years. Rid of the rest.
Yeah, it depends on the record, and it depends on kind of, not only does it depend on the record, but it also depends on kind of our own procedures and how we do business, etc. For instance, we just went, the accounts receivable, accounts payable, bank statements, most of the accounting information that we use, gets generated monthly. Those things, if you go look in that TASLAC list, show up on a bunch of different little lines depending on what they are. But they all got a retention period of, I believe it's 5 years after the audit. So basically, you got a 5-year retention for all that kind of stuff after you get your annual financial audit complete. So for
5 years after the audit?
This year's 2019 stack of stuff. We finished that audit in March, approved it in March, and so that's when the 5 years started. And so in 2025, March of 2025, those particular things will be eligible to be destroyed. And we'll put a date on there, probably December 2025 or something like that. Now, the reason I say that it's important on how we do business is because all of that stuff comes out of the financial office, right? Dwayne's office. So the process for him is he keeps the current year going, right? As every time he gets a bill, he puts it in the filing cabinets, et cetera. And then at the end of the year, at the end of the fiscal year, he's got to go, he pulls all that stuff out and puts it in one of these banker boxes, or actually it turns out 4 banker boxes, and makes it available for the auditors. And so it's all kind of together there for them to do their audit. And then when they get through doing their audit and we say, okay, we've done it, that's at the point in time we will go mark it and move it out for storage. Or actually what we will do is, because there's sometimes a question of the second year, our plan is to go hold those records inside the building for the current year and the preceding year. And so it's really not until the third year that it moves out to the storage shed. And at that point in time, it's been marked and it just sits there and waits patiently for its time to come by.
All right.
So that's a 5-year look. There's some records like time cards that actually we only have to keep a couple of years of. But when you get into timekeeping, there's payroll records that actually have a 75-year retention period after the employee is terminated, is no longer employed. So those are basically permanent boxes, right? So we have to, and we got so many grant-related boxes out there that all we've done is basically treated them as permanent for now. In the list, it's more complicated than that, or can be more complicated than that. But
right. Well, it kind of goes back with Lisa's questions, because a lot of the stuff is kind of stored in a database electronically. I mean, do you destroy that too when you get rid of the paper stuff? Because I'm assuming you're talking about nothing but paper, physical stuff.
Yeah, we're just talking about paper stuff. No, we haven't moved to get rid of electronic stuff. But if I recall in the TASLAC electronic thing, I believe you're supposed to keep that, aren't you? Jared, you may know. Seems like I remember reading something about it. Once you move it to electronic media, you just keep it.
I think it still follows the same retention schedule. With the procedures for destruction, you still have to maintain that file of what's been destroyed. So like these files that we're talking about here, we have to maintain a record of that destruction. So with an electronic record, you'd follow on the same schedule, but you have to maintain the record of the destruction. And how you do that, if you're not using a customized software, you have to create a paper record where you would describe, what it was you deleted off your hard drive.
Okay. Do we have any cloud storage?
I'll get back to you on that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like our email might be considered cloud storage, as far as a
right.
Amazon Web Services or Microsoft or any of those others. Not that.
Okay. All right, that's enough.
Any other questions? So what I guess we're asking for is we'd like a motion to authorize destruction of 12 boxes and 33 books that have exceeded their retention date.
I'll move.
Good.
Who was that?
It was me, Sonia.
And I second.
Mike,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
we have no nays, passes 5-0. Oh, there it is. All right, that's moving on to agenda item 8, which is discussion of the library contract and accreditation process. And we have some stranger here that is going to go talk to us about it.
I'm scared to death that we're going to get a little bit of overlay on this. So if you can't hear, let me know. It might be that I have to walk across the house or tell him to go away. I don't know. We're going to go through it once again with the library accreditation. I think y'all might have had this PowerPoint before today, hopefully, so that you could read through it. But this is just to go over and tell you a little bit about the accreditation. It's very convoluted, and sometimes there will be places that you're going to have to ask questions. I know, and feel free. So let's go to the next slide. The background that the library opened 5 years ago. That we're currently an independent nonprofit library. The library serves the Martindale area community. When we set it up, we were very, that's what we wanted to get across, that we were going to serve the whole community around here, because you know that we're charged, I think it's $50 a year per person to be part of the San Marcos Library, if we want to have a library card in San Marcos. And that was very high cost for quite a few of the families around here. So unless you're a student, it will cost you to go to either the Lockhart or the San Marcos Library. And that was the reason they wanted to have a large community library with no charge. If you can see that we're consistently growing. In January 2019, we had 362 patrons. And you can see that we went to 443 in 1 year. And already this year, we've increased that to 465 patrons, which, considering we use 1,160 citizens in Martindale in our reports, I think that's a good showing. The library was granted the accreditation status in 2018. I believe all of y'all were on City Council when we announced that. We're very proud that we are an accredited library with only 5 years under our belt. So if you'll go to the next one with the accreditation process. What happens is every year I have to submit an annual report to TASLAC to give the current status of our library, to make sure that we're adhering to the Texas Administrative Code for the libraries. The rules are for minimum standards for accreditation. So when I hit that level that you all will see on some of this, that means I've hit the minimum. They want you to go beyond the minimum, and we'll get to that. That annual report that I turn in, it goes to Jared, he signs it. It goes to our library board chair, Jane, and she signs it. It's about a 24-page document, and it's very, very detailed. It has qualitative and quantitative standards in the code that we have to follow, and that'll be in the annual report also. And our funding standards, which are the ones you're concerned about, those are according to the population. So we fall within under 5,000 people, therefore we have a certain amount that we have to go to. The annual report is submitted in March for the previous fiscal year of the library. The library's fiscal year is January 1 to December 31st. The city of Martindale's fiscal year is October 1 to September 30th. So there's going to be a little imbalance when we start recording those required funds. Your check comes to us in December. I don't have enough time from December to January 1 to spend that most of the time. So there's a little bit of imbalance at that time about what I've spent and what I haven't spent from the city. The first year that we were accredited, we had to use indirect funding, and TASLAC helped me through that. And after that, it's half of your money shows up on it and the other half doesn't. We're using the previous year's money to get us through for that accreditation. That annual report is a matter of public record. If you want to go online and find it through TASLAC, it will also show you any other library in the state. There's two elements of accreditation that were the last ones that we got that helped us get to the accreditation process. One is having a contract with the city of Martindale. And because we have that contract, we say that we will serve the public without charging them. And then the second one is the city's contributing funding. And that's kind of what we're here for today, is those two parts, the contract and the city contributing funding. That funding is determined by Rule 1.81 of the Texas Administrative Code. So if we can go to the next one, you'll see all of these funding codes that I have to go through to make sure that we are doing this correctly. Currently, the City of Martindale funds $18,000 per Rule 1.81, where it says libraries serving a population of 5,000 or fewer have a minimum total local expenditures of $18,000 total in local fiscal years 2019, 2020, and 21. Now it goes up in 3 more years. So in 2022, it'll go to 21,000, and then it goes up and goes up. And that's on the Rule 1.81 in the Texas Code, telling us exactly how much we have to use. On Rule 1.74, the library must demonstrate local effort on the annual basis, maintaining or increasing your local expenditures. What they want you to do is they don't want you to fall back underneath a certain amount. You continually have to make progress, making sure that your library has standards and that you keep adding to your collection, you keep making your library a good place to go to. They want you to keep improving. So then you go to Rule 1.74B, where the library must have a total local expenditure of that $18,000. It shows it once again, 1.81 and 1.74. And then Rule 1.77A, at least half of the annual local operating expenditures required to meet the minimum level per capita support of accreditation must be from local government sources. Now, that's for us as the city. We don't have anybody giving us any endowments. A lot of the libraries have previous patrons that have a fund for them to go into. We don't have that. So it has to come from the City of Martindale for us to have that accreditation. Then the library, I wanted to tell you, we raised funds through bake sales in the spring, which kind of that was a bad thing this year. And then we have a raffle in September, which this is coming up on, I think, our 4th, 5th year for that raffle. We do okay with it. Not great, but we do okay. Now, to help us to get some of the stuff we need, I apply for grants, but that grant money does not apply towards our maintenance of effort. That maintenance of effort up there is something I have to continually keep track of to make sure that your money is spent and our money is spent, and we keep on growing. If we can go back to that for just a second, last year we spent $26,000. So in 2020, we're going to spend $26,000 plus whatever they tell us from TASLAC. It always grows, and the city always has to put in their money on that, along with the library. So I'm
now,
going to go.
May I ask you a question, Carol?
Sure.
The city only has to put in half of that money, right?
Half of the MOE, that's correct.
So we would only have to put in $9,000.
No, ma'am. The MOE for next year is going to be $26,000 plus.
So half of 26.
Yes.
20, so that would
plus.
There.
Plus, because they're going to tell us what my new MOE is. I get a new MOE every year. But remember, we have to keep spending. And what I just told you, the bake sales, they just got wiped out with the COVID. I don't have any money coming in right now from bake sales. So we're going to have to see how we, work that. Grant money doesn't count towards our MOE. Now, TASLAC provided to me a comparison statistics from the libraries with our same population as Martindale. Martindale currently has the 6th lowest MOE in the state. There's plenty of libraries that are less people. There are cities that are less people than us that are spending way more than we are. We are at the 6th lowest MOE in the state. And that's because I keep a close watch on it. I don't want to go over and spend a lot of money, but there's times that you just have to spend that money. And that's why we went up to $26,000 this year.
Okay, Carol, maintenance of effort is that's not your operating expenses, or is that included in this?
That is my operating expenses.
Okay. So that's like electricity and
Rent,
rent and all that.
my books, yes.
Okay.
Cleaning goes into that, yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
If I buy supplies for pre-K story time, that goes into that. My internet goes into that. All of that is my maintenance of effort, my MOE.
Right. Okay.
Can we go forward?
Yes, please.
Real quick question, Carol. This is Jared. So, in the future, say if your MOE through your fundraising events grows to 40 or 50,000, hopefully, let's say, are you now saying that the city would have to pay 20 or 25,000?
That's why I try and keep it low, yes. I try and keep that MOE low so that the city isn't giving as much. And that also means that I have to give as much. So I keep it as close as I can. Last year, because there's some reasons why it went to 26, but we had to pay some subscriptions, that type of thing, that are coming up. So it went up in December to 26,000.
So can you explain to me the rule 1.77A then, the language there and how it reflects to MOE? Because I might be confusing those terms, and I think some of the council members may as well.
Okay, so if our MOE, at least it says it, let me go back, I'm sorry. At least half of the annual local expenditures required to meet the minimum level per capita support for accreditation must be from local government sources. So whatever our MOE is, half of that has to be from the city.
So what you're saying, the MOE is the same thing as the local operating expenditures?
No, the MOE is my expenditures that I have during the year. The local expenditures are what you give.
All right. So,
gotcha.
The minimum level of per capita support.
So my MOE, your local expenditures come into my MOE. Okay, so half of my MOE has to come from you. Does that make sense?
So the minimum level of per capita support is equal to your MOE, because if you don't maintain your MOE, then you don't maintain your accreditation. Is that the link?
I didn't quite hear all you said because I'm starting to have some feedback. Can you repeat that, Jared, please?
Yeah, so in the second half of that rule 177A, where it talks about required to meet the minimum level of per capita support for accreditation, the minimum level of per capita support for accreditation is equal to the maintenance of effort?
Half of the maintenance of effort. At least
is it the 26,000 or is it the 18,000?
26.
26. That is not what that.
No. Well, but part of the MOE is the 18,000 that she got from us. Is that correct?
I didn't, because of, no, wait a minute. I did not use all of your money because remember, y'all were on a different fiscal year than I am. My date that I begin is January 1. You give me the second check in December. So I have 1 month. Out of December, we take 2 weeks off because of Christmas. So I would have 2 weeks to spend that last one. So I'm really always trying to play catch up with your money and my money.
But when you come down to it, you still get the 18,000 in 1 year.
I get the 18,000, yes, but now it goes into next year. That first year, we didn't get it soon enough. So I had to find a way to work it. And so we're always kind of running in arrears on that money.
Why can't we change the date where you get the deposits?
That would be wonderful, yes.
It would. And I want to jump in for a second, Carol. Is it accurate that every library, every city that is accredited and connected to the city goes through the same process?
Absolutely, yes.
So this is
If you are accredited, you're going through this process.
There's nothing subject specifically for us. And also wanted to,
I don't think y'all said that right. There's three types of libraries that get accreditations. If your library is a part of the city, a department of the city, none of this matters because the city funds it. Okay.
No, they still, that's incorrect. You still have to have an MOE.
They have to provide the money levels that you're talking about here, but it all comes from the city. And so the rules aren't the same.
Right.
If it's
all of their money comes from the city unless they have an endowment.
Yes. If it's a nonprofit standalone organization, which is what Martindale Community Library is, then these are the rules that apply. And then if it is a library district like they have in different places where it is its own governmental entity like an ESD or a utility district or whatever, there's again another set of rules that apply, that this stuff changes. So Lisa's question is no matter where it goes, all of this stuff applies. These rules are for the
independent nonprofits that I'm giving you.
Things and you have to have the governmental support to get accreditation in that particular group. You don't have to have any kind of governmental support other than yourselves in a library district, and you obviously have governmental support if you're a part of the city. So these things all it depends on how it's set up, and because they started out as part of the city and then that didn't work out, so now they became their own.
That's true.
Nonprofit,
that's true.
And so now these are the rules that apply to get accreditation. They got it, but to keep accreditation, they got to have the two elements that she talked about up front. They got to have a contract as a nonprofit. They got to have a contract with a governmental entity, and they got to get a certain percentage of their MOE, which happens to be half of it, from that governmental entity. That's what this 177A is all about.
So we're looking really at 13,000.
Right, approximately. Yeah. She keeps saying 26 plus because she doesn't know what the change is going to be, but it could be $255 or something. So you get the idea.
But it's approximately 13,000 and not 18.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's what I'm understanding. According to the 1.77A rule.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay. Did you want to continue, Carol?
But I am going to tell you, we are not going to. I don't have that 13,000 to make it up, then I'll lose accreditation.
All right, say that again. You broke up a little bit.
I'm sorry. Okay, so you put in, we're going to use 26,000, not 26,000 plus. You put in 13, then I have to come up with 13, right? If I don't have the money from my, the bank account because we don't do the raffle or we don't have our bake sales, then I lose accreditation.
Carol, what is it that we as the city need to do, or maybe shouldn't be asking you this, Mayor Jared, what is it that we as a city need to do to change the month that we make this deposit so that it does not, to be the path of least resistance as far as stress for both parties?
Well, we have the opportunity to rewrite the contract. The contract ends in September. And for our fiscal year, we've already paid them for our fiscal year. I think when we do our next contract, we set a January 15th date or February 15th date as the contract invoice period.
Okay, and so in that first change, would it basically incorporate more than a year, or would you do it where it went from? Would you do a contract from September to the January, February, and then start it over again? It would be my hopes that I would see it would go, it would lap over.
Oh, in terms of the period of performance of the base period and the option periods?
Or
Yeah, we could try to align that in some sort of way. I think contract periods aren't as important as the date of disbursement of funds, and making sure that we're not leaving Carol in a lurch, because what we're doing right now is giving her funding on Christmas and telling her to spend it by New Year's, essentially.
Right, that's ridiculous.
When you're talking $8,000 at that time of the year, it's not going to happen.
and that's actually close to like a setup for failure. So we
Yeah,
definitely.
no, it really is.
Yeah.
And I appreciate what you said. It's not necessarily about the contract date, it's the date of disbursement. So in essence, we don't necessarily have to change the contract date. We just, in September, make changes to the contract to change the disbursement date.
Correct.
Good.
So what is the amount that I'm hearing half of the MOE, but then is it the 26,000 total that the city would be paying?
No, I pay for some, y'all pay for some. What's been happening in the past is y'all been paying for the majority of it. You just don't make a lot of money as a nonprofit library. You don't. The raffle is where we make our money, and then the bake sales. And there's not a lot of money coming in when you're a small town. So that's why the majority of our money has been through the city.
How much was the MOE last year, Carol?
It was at 18,925. So my MOE was right under 19,000. And that's for 2018. 2019 is coming up. I just turned that in at the beginning of March. And I saw what my MOE is probably going to look like, and it's about 26,000.
That's quite a big jump.
So Carol, we renegotiate the amount every
when we first opened
year?
up. But the MOE jump is because we're at the end of 5 years, and our first year we got a grant from Talker to pay for our circulation, our system that we use to check out books, and we had to re-up it. We've hit the end of the 5 years, so we used that money to re-up. We used city money to re-up, and that's why it jumped.
But that lasts for 5 years?
5 years.
Okay.
It's going to last for 5 more years.
Right. So you're not going to need that money for the next 2 or 3 years.
For that money, no.
For your MOE.
But we have other subscriptions now.
Okay. Now, don't you have some subscriptions that you're entitled to because of accreditation? Yes, and we'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and finish. Okay. Do y'all have any more questions on this, or can I move up?
If we're going to talk funding later in next contracts later, I might have another question. Otherwise, we can ask now or ask it later. Depends on.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go forward then to, what is it? Grants. Let me see what's next. Grants. All right. So you're wondering about the grants. That's how we get a lot of our stuff. And we don't have to pay for it because we do have a small amount of money to work with. But I wanted to tell you that not all grants require state accreditation. I get some small ones, but the major grants do require that state accreditation. And some of those grants I go after say that I have to pay them back if the city withdraws funding because I'm getting grants. So that's key. I have not gone after 2 grants in these past couple of months since November because I was afraid y'all were going to pull back on my money. So I didn't go after 2 grants because of that requirement. Some of the grants are for monetary or for specific purposes like equipment, books, services. You don't get a grant for staff though. You can't pay for staffing with grant money. In 2018, I applied for 3 grants. I was awarded 1 for $1,600. In 2019, I applied for 11 grants. I was awarded 8 for $87,000 plus. That's a huge jump. That's what happens when you get state accreditation.
So what
That's
did
what
you
happened.
get for the 87,000?
I'll get to that in a minute.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay. All right. And then this year I've applied for 3 grants. I've been awarded 1. I should hear about one of them on Friday, I was told. I was one of the first in the state to go after that, so I should hear about it by next Friday. And it's not a big one. And then the third one that I've gone for is a programming STEM truck for kids. They'll bring a big truck to, if we get it, they'll bring a big truck to Martindale, and the kids can go through it all day long. And it's science, technology, engineering. It's really cool. So hopefully we'll get that. Yeah, let's go ahead and go forward here. Jared, thank you. All right, here's the 2019 grants, some of the other values. So for that 87,000, I got San Marcos Lions Club for 1,750. First Books. They occasionally will send me, hey, you know, choose $250 worth of books for a grant, and I did it twice. The J. Frank Dobie was the big one for the year. That was kind of wonderful. I applied for 1,000, and they gave me almost 10. They said they liked the story of Martindale. So they gave, I mean, how many times do you go after 1,000 and they give you almost 10, right? So I thought that was pretty good. And it was in front of Texas Library Association that we were awarded that grant. It was pretty thrilling. I've never seen that in my 30 plus years of being a librarian. It was pretty great. The ASRT is American Society of Radiological Technologists, and they gave us $500 worth of books. The Doggett donation from Kirkus Review, approximately $3,660. The E-rate funding of the fiber optic network was about $17,988. We now have fiber optic network in Martindale. That took the library up from 30 megabits all the way up to 1 gig. So we now have 1 gig downtown. What that also is allowing us to do is boost our signal to all of downtown. And that's one of the grants I'm doing right now because of COVID. And I can explain that later, but it'll boost it even more. So that was 1 year. I took a 3-year contract with that. So you can figure that almost 18,000 for a year of the fiber optic network. And y'all are giving us 18 right there, it balanced out. The Amigos ebook subscription, what I've noticed in the library stats right now is the number of people using Overdrive and the Amigos ebooks have jumped because they can't come to the library, we're closed. That has been a great thing for the library. You notice that we get 37,500. The ALA, PLA, we got 8 laptops this year. It was given to us. We were the only one in Texas to get this grant. It was for $15,286.80. It was 1 year support with TechSoup to go with that. I heard from the gentleman with ALA, PLA today, and they want our story because when I sent him a message, you know, you have to follow up on your grants saying how you're using them. And he followed up with me after I sent my email saying they wanted to use the Martindale story in the American Library Association grant writing. So I was thrilled that we have made a difference and they liked what we were doing with those 8 laptops. These were the laptops that we used with Jared's Envision 2020. We're supposed to use them to go to other, at the soup kitchen is one of the things that they are interested, the ALA people were interested in, is I want to take 3 of them, go to the soup kitchen and teach them how to use the laptops for email, for Facebook, and how to use Office, you know, various things that people usually won't come to the library for, but they'll go to the soup kitchen and they can use them there. So I thought that would be great. Notice the yellow highlighting on some of that. Those are the ones that I got because of the accreditation that we got. Notice the difference in the amounts. If we lose accreditation, we lose 2 of those major ones, the Amigos book subscription, and we lose the E-rate funding, that 18,000 for the fiber optic network. That would be that would hit me pretty bad for the library if that one goes away. All right, any questions on that? No? All right, let's
Yeah,
go
just
forward.
real quick, the 18,000 for the fiber optic, it's a 3-year contract. Are you going to reapply for that in 3 years?
Yes.
Okay.
In 3 years, yes, I will. Yes, yes, because that's what the they're spending the money to pay for that for us. I mean, we have fiber optic here in Martindale now. Y'all can jump on and you know, at your house, you can get fiber optic now. That's amazing to me. I think it's great. So yes, that would also end if if I don't get accredited, if I don't get the money, the contract, whatever, then that would end and I would have to pay that amount for the 2 years following. So that would pretty much break me. All right, let's go forward then. The additional benefits of accreditation. Some of the things y'all don't care about, I know, but I do. We get interlibrary loans from other libraries across the nation. So if you needed a book that we don't have here in Martindale, I can go to another library and get it. The eligibility of the federal E-rate, that was the one we just talked about. I can apply for state loan competitive grants, state library competitive grants. I haven't done this in that past year. I did 11 of them, and that takes up quite a bit of time. I think 11 grants, you know, that's a lot of time for somebody who's volunteering. The additional programs and project opportunities, that's what I was telling you, the STEM truck, the laptops that came in, the one that I should hear about this week is for boosting our signal downtown for internet. All of those are because we're accredited, and I wouldn't have access to those otherwise. Let's go to forward, or does anybody have a question on any of that? Okay, let's go forward. And it's, why does the library need that contract, and why do we need the funding? And I think bottom line is we need to stay accredited by the state, by TASAC. And then I see it as a we item, that it's the library and the city working together, and this benefits all of Martindale. If we don't get the accreditation, we lose the internet and the Wi-Fi funding, and that impacts not only us, but y'all jump on our internet. When y'all are down there with city council meetings, you're using the library's internet. When you're downtown at the River Cafe, the businesses down there use the library internet. When you're out there just sitting out on the front porch, which we have kids doing that right now, they're using it, the library internet, with their laptops. They sit out on the bench out front, they go down to the table at the River Cafe, and they're using that for their schoolwork right now. So I would lose that. I would lose the capability of going after these major grants. I would have to curtail my programming for children and adults because of lack of funds. And I would lose the ebooks with Simply E. Those ebooks, a lot of the people can't make it to the library, especially right now, and they're using those ebooks to keep on reading. And I think that's great that we can provide that for them. Any questions? All right, let's go forward. It shows that the library has, my library needs for accreditation, that I go back to that 1.81 that shows I have to have a minimum of 7,500 items. We have close to 10. It says 1% of your total items in the collection need to be in the last 5 years. We have 15%. We have to be open for services not less than 20 hours per week. We are open 21. And employ a library director for at least 20 hours per week in library duties. That would be me, and I get $1 a year. So it's basically a volunteer position. Then according to the Texas Code 1.73, a nonprofit corporation chartered by the Office of the Secretary of State for the purposes of providing free library services must have a current contract with each funding source, which in our case is the city, to provide free library services for that city. So why I'm here today is to say that the Martindale Community Library is requesting a continuance of the contract with the city of Martindale for $18,000 to provide free public library services. And if we go to that last page, it's my last thoughts, and then we can call this the day, right? All right. It says that a library outranks any one thing a community can do to benefit its people. And I've always believed in libraries. That was Andrew Carnegie. He put how much money into 200 and something libraries across the state so that they could have a community library. I grew up in San Antonio and in Bryan. Both of them had Carnegie libraries. They were gorgeous. Then the last one there, that today as cities and suburbs reinvent themselves. This is from Edric Kleinenberg. He wrote Palaces for the People, and it talks about the infrastructure within cities and how you have to have certain community groups or places that they can go, safe areas that children can go to, and it's something free of inequality, and that would be a library because they are part of our civil society. We started out with Library of Congress. We started out with Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin giving their personal libraries so that Congress would have a library. They believe that that's the way that the people can bring themselves up by educating themselves. And I truly believe in that it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your interests are, your religion, anything. You're always welcome in the library. And that's probably what brings people together in the town, is they can go to the library and not have to worry about it. It is a safe area. So that is from Palaces of the People, and I really highly recommend that you read that. As a librarian, of course, I'd have to say, go ahead, read a book, and I really recommend Palaces of the People. All right, any questions?
Are we voting on this tonight?
No, ma'am, it's discussion only.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you stated that you basically, as the bottom line of this presentation, one is to keep us all informed, but two is that you have a request for of the contract. So my question is, when does that continuance need to be established? And then, yeah, that's it.
Your contract ends September 21st.
Mm-hmm. And
so I will need a new contract before September. It's not the 21st, 30th, September 30th.
Right. But
so I will need a new contract before then.
For a year.
I'm sorry, what?
You want the contract for a year?
I would like a year, yes. The previous one was for 3 years. Yes.
Okay.
And just to be known that if the contract ends in September, we as a council do not have to wait until August to push that forward, or no matter which way. So we could actually have it on an upcoming agenda and go ahead and do it, which would state that it would renew upon its expiration date. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Well, we can
Jared,
do it anytime
is that
we want.
correct?
I have a question, Carol. Why are you only asking for a 1-year contract?
I can answer that. I think I told her she had to. The reason is we got it as the reason is, and Kent, you need to weigh in on this one. There is, and I can't quote the statute, but there is some requirement that says a governmental entity cannot exceed its budgetary boundaries, et cetera. So basically you have to do everything year by year.
The library's lawyer recommended 1 year at a time.
And quite frankly,
all right. So I should have been doing it 1 year as from when we started. What I hear you saying.
Yeah, probably should have been.
All right.
Kent, you got any? You know what I'm talking about on that?
Yeah, there's a provision of the Texas Constitution that essentially prohibits one council from binding a subsequent council.
Right, that's it.
The caveat to that would be, are we binding to a specific dollar amount? And if we're not binding to a specific dollar amount, then I think there is some more leeway.
We were binding to a specific dollar amount. That's what we've had in the past.
So you're saying we could work with a range?
No, if you agree to fund a particular obligation, but
Right.
if it is not specifically hard, fast, and binding as to the dollar amount, but it just simply is.
So if you said that you would fund the minimum standard of the Texas code, is that saying it's a dollar amount?
I don't want to jump.
You say you fund at least.
I don't want to jump into making definitive statements here in a public meeting, but what I'm saying is if the council wants to explore looking at something beyond 1 year, that is certainly something that we can discuss.
Okay.
So Carol, help me understand, if we're looking out years, the city is on the hook to pay more money based on your fundraising success? Is that what I took away from the discussion?
Our fundraising success is, our keeping accreditation is dependent on our fundraising success, yes.
Yeah, so
because if we have to have our portion of it to make that 26,000.
So you're asking the city to make up for what you weren't able to do this year?
Yes.
Jared, let me
keep accreditation.
Let me throw something in there. Just like we as a city are asking the federal government to help us make up for what we were not able to do based on our current situation with COVID-19. Let's just keep that in perspective.
Thank you.
Let me answer Jared's question a little differently. Jared, the whole point of that was to get back to the MOE activity. The rules state as when they are a nonprofit standalone, that the governmental entity needs to make up half of their MOE, and the MOE goes up based off of the prior 3 years average expenditures. So if they expend more money in the future, then the MOE goes up, and it has to go up at least $1, I guess, or whatever, some little silly amount. But that's the commitment that you have to make if you're going to go keep them accredited, is at least giving them half of whatever the MOE comes about, and they don't know the MOE for the next year until they get through with the prior year. So it's like, when's she supposed to give you the answer on that, Carol? The TASLAC people.
August is when I got it last year.
But we really don't know the answer until August of what the actual total value is going to be, but they get kind of close with the estimates and the like.
So you will have an answer to that prior to the expiration of this contract, of what the MOE is.
I'm not going to guarantee that. It's when they send it to me is when I get it.
Well, why they don't have dates on that?
No, ma'am.
No time frame?
No. There is one person working that right now, and she has over 250 Texas libraries to verify her information.
So she might not get, she doesn't have to get it to you any certain date. There's no date
there
on
is
that.
not a deadline date for her to get it to me. No.
And then that information puts me back with the notion of, should we change the date of the contract? If it's in August, you follow, I'm trying to think, how can we make all this work so that no one gets jammed up?
First, I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Lisa. I think that would be great. Us knowing that we have that contract works wonderfully because that takes off some of the pressure for us. Like I said, I spend very close to that amount as I can, because I don't want it to get out of hand, because you know that the next year it's going to go up, you know the next year it's going to go up. So I try and keep that as close as I can to the lowest amount that I can get. Does that make sense?
Why do we pay it in 2 payments?
Yeah, why don't you take a lump sum?
I can take a lump sum. I did that the first year to get that contract because y'all, it was an easier.
Yeah, that's because of our tax dollars don't come in until January. That's what that's all.
That's correct.
I was going to say that was probably a city decision to put it in 2 payments versus one based on our budget.
That's correct. That's correct.
I disagree with that.
Oh, do you? I mean, we're going to have enough money at the end of this year, right?
You know that?
Oh, I don't know. No, we have to ask Dwayne, I guess.
What do you disagree with?
I believe it was a mutual decision between the city and the library the first year. Again, it actually was helpful to have the 2 pieces the first year, because her first year of potential application was January to December. So by getting half the payment in December, that actually gave her an opportunity to go off and make half of the MOE requirement. If you recall, the first year that they did this, you don't have an MOE. You just have to go off of what's in the requirements that are the minimum requirements that are in the law, which was $15,000. So when they got $7,500 in December, she jumped through her tail and spent it all just as fast as she could, and actually tried to go get that year accredited. Now there were some other things missing, so they didn't quite make it. But it was beneficial to do it that first year, and from then on, you get half out of one of our fiscal years and half out of the second fiscal year. So it worked out okay for them.
I have a question about the grant application. I remember that we were presented that there was going to be a grant applied for that would cover a building for the city and fire department and library.
Right. I did go after that. I contacted the USDA. I spoke with him. It was with Kim and with the fire department. And because of our census data not being complete, we could not qualify. They said that Martindale made too much money. Again, this is going back to census. Everybody needs to answer that census.
Yeah.
So what is the library doing? And I'm not being condescending. I want to know, what is the library doing to help improve that number?
The census number?
Yes.
Well, we have the computers. I have put it on Facebook for people to remember to do the census. What are you trying? What do you think I need to do?
Well, I don't know. Suggestion, maybe the Friends of the Library could go out and promote getting the census filled out. I know my son filled out the census in Austin because this lady came by and told him he needed to, and why he needed to, and that and she was going to come back and check on him to make sure they did it, and so they did it. And that is the kind of commitment.
Those people have been hired.
I was going to say that's a census employee.
And I just think that right now during the pandemic, that's not what we want to do.
What?
One of the things that you guys might not know is that of course the Caldwell Counts organization that the county put together involved all the cities and the school district and key leaders throughout the county. Sonia's on that team, I'm on that team, and Carol Ann is on that team as well, up to the point where they had engaged her to come out to the community of St. John's and take those 8 laptops that she got on those that grant to help them go off and have a day similar to our civics day, to where they were going to go try to get people to fill out the census at that. COVID stepped on that. They ended up canceling that because that was scheduled at the end of March, and all those social gathering rules that came about before they could go do that.
Right.
And she has been participating as by posters and publicizing it amongst the library volunteers as well. I'm not sure I'm in favor of sending the kind of library volunteers we have out to go door to door in this COVID-19 thing.
We won't.
Because most of them are older than I am.
I hear you. Yeah.
But I, I want to stand up for Carol on that one, is that she has participated, gone to the CCCCC meetings and over there, and working diligently with the library over there. Actually took some ideas from us. The Clark Library got involved.
They were not participating.
Yeah.
And then Mayor Davini, I would just like to also add that in conjunction with the SMC ISD parent liaison from Days of Allah Elementary, Ms. Davini was willing to have the library open along with census workers that were there. That was already in the works and going to happen. But just like also with COVID, it had to be canceled.
Right. Okay.
I think as far as the census goes, just like everything else has been given some extensions, I think we'll have opportunity to make up that time.
And we've done ours, so hopefully everybody on the councils has done it.
I would like to speak to that about the new different library building, because the restroom is the reason we're closed at this point, as in addition to the fact that all of our volunteers are old. We don't have the restroom to wash our hands, and that is one of the #1 things you need to be doing right now. And I think trying to bring in my friends, the library volunteers, to say, come in and deal with people when we don't have that facility. That's the reason we are remaining closed, and we are not out of line with a lot of other libraries. A lot of libraries are still closed and will remain closed until they feel safe. It will be a very expensive thing for us to open up the library right now. We are required to have shields, thermometers to people coming in, face masks and gloves. Any books that come in must be quarantined for 3 days before we can deal with them. And there's just a lot that goes with opening the library back up, and we don't have the funds right now to get the cleaning materials that are necessary. So we're just remaining closed. So I thank you for bringing that up.
Carol, I went to the TSLAC website and tried to look up the annual report, but it looked like you needed to have a log on.
You're probably looking at mine.
Go ahead.
Are you looking for that? Are you looking for the annual report?
Yes, you said the
data from other libraries?
Yes, you said the annual report was online.
Yes, it is. The statistics are, if you'll go under the library services.
Well, your report that you filled out wasn't online, because I saw the form for it and it was outrageous. I don't know how you do it.
It's very detailed.
Yeah.
And it makes me sick to my stomach, and I'm not the only one. All the other librarians get sick to their stomach.
I sure hope you have help with that.
Rob helps me quite a bit.
Anyway.
So yeah, but I can
Go ahead.
Get that to you so that you can look at the stats. And if you want me to send you the stats where it compares the Martindale Library with other libraries of our population also.
And there was a link to the to our library on there.
Yes.
And that's with those that's some of the things you've gotten through grants, like that. I think the Amigo was on there or something.
The Amigos, I got through that.
Right, and other little kids' books and whatever else was on there. There was a lot. But that's how you access all that, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay, you have a link of that on your website? I didn't go and check.
I don't have it on our website, no, but I can send you a link.
Well, I found it. It was the annual report that I was curious about.
She will not have that one on there yet. She's still, that ended last week, 5 days ago, 6 days ago.
Right, right. You just
So they won't have last year's.
Yeah, well, I could have. I figured maybe they are, since it's an archival place. They probably had last year's on it. But it's just
they
the
do.
statistics that's on
They
that.
have everyone that we've turned in. Yes.
But it's not online. It's just the statistics, right? Comparing to other libraries.
No, you'll be able to find that I make $1 a year. That's asked. You'll be able to find out how many books I have. You'll be able to find out how many kids programs we had.
Why don't you go look up?
You'll be able to see how many people attended the kids programs. I can do that.
Do what? I didn't hear that.
I suggested that she go send out a message to all the council members that has the path.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. So where we go from here, of course, is this was requested because we knew the contract was coming up at the end of September. I kind of had this in my mind that this was going to be a budgetary kind of item, which would be coming up in July probably. Somebody suggested doing that before then. Do we, anybody want to? Who wants to stand up and salute and let's just get this done? Or
I would like to get it done.
any others think we ought to get it done now or wait till we get to the budget?
I'd rather wait till we get to the budget.
Who's that, Jan?
Yes.
Well, see, my reason for wanting to is because, she's not able to apply for grants until she knows that she's gonna have the support. So whenever we're waiting until that happens, then she's missing out on possible grants. So we have to do our due diligence in trying to, come to a consensus on how we can move forward.
Well, for one thing, this is a discussion only on this agenda. I wouldn't mind it being on next month's agenda for discussion and action.
Jerry, didn't you want to have a meeting next week?
I agree. I just wanted to say that, Jan, I was muted a moment ago. I do agree. I think that's a great idea. We need to go ahead and move forward.
Okay.
Okay. All right. That's good enough. I'm getting a feel that it's got enough interest. We'll stick it on the upcoming agenda item.
Great.
All right. That wraps up agenda item 8. Now we're moving on to future agenda items. The road restriping continues to just be there until I get to it. We just said we wanted to try to talk to that coming up for the library. Somebody suggested adopt a highway program. I haven't done anything on that. Jared requested that we need the strategic planning workshop, and we kind of peg that for the 19th. Is anybody of this month, 5/19? Anybody got a problem with that?
I need to check my calendar.
That's a regular Tuesday. And Lisa, well, first off, Jared, is that going to take up a full?
So it depends on how much discussion we have. What I would like to do is come away with from that meeting with a uniform, universal set framework that I can go back and create the plan with and have decisions made on key initiatives. That way I can do the legwork on understanding what those cost estimates may be and get it rolled into a financial plan. And so if we're trying to get it, that's a lot of work that might be done. but if there's not a lot of discussion, then it could go quickly. But if there's discussion on what initiatives we want to address for each of those priority areas, and I think we're looking at a lengthy meeting.
Yeah. Okay. So that one's probably going to take up the whole meeting. We may have something fall in based off of COVID that requires a council decision or something. But if not, we'll just do that. Anybody got anything else for the future?
I could have swore that last time I had talked about abandoned houses.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay. You did.
Now, when you say abandoned houses, are these houses that were flooded out way back when in the 2000?
No, I mean, it's just like those that are abandoned, that are, nobody's living in them. The weeds are all overgrown. Like we have the church that's, that's going to be built right down the road from us, that there's still work, it's been like, I swear they've been working on it the past 3 years. There's houses with the roofs that are caving in, like nobody's living there. We sure did go hard and heavy after, they're in town for the building, they're in town, that was abandoned. But there's some other safety hazards in the community that we need to, to look into those as well.
There are, I agree with what you're saying, Sonia, as well as I'd like to remind staff, basically, whether it be chief that does this or not, but when the grass reaches a certain level, I mean, I personally have had neighbors that I knew their situation, they were ill or something was going on. I just went over and mowed the yard because that's what good neighbors do. But when nobody lives there and you don't have any connection, I mean, I'm talking rats and snakes starts living in there and it becomes a health situation. So my reminder is that we have a code of ordinances that is supposed to send letters, and long and short, if they, over a certain period of time, if they do not respond, then we as a city take care of it and send them the bill. Jared, I personally will send you a few addresses that I feel like need to be addressed.
Yeah, there's a number of them that I'm aware of, and every Monday I come in, I talk to Harry and ask him, have you followed up with this location and that location? And so he's followed up with some, not all. I know that he had some others on his list to follow up on. So
it sounds like it needs to be on the agenda.
It definitely needs to be on the
yeah.
We are in the growing.
Along those lines, if someone has, they're putting in improvements to their property, and do they have to have a permit posted?
Yes.
Well, we can discuss that.
Well, I'm asking that question. So we need to, do we follow through on that? I would like to have a conversation about that because as a council member, I have people ask me that.
Yeah, it's supposed to be physically visible. Front.
It depends on what kind of improvement. So, Sylvia can give you information as well as I can. If you want to talk about that, I gladly share what I know.
Okay, I got abandoned houses, the nuisance issues, which is what's the word used in the ordinances, and the permit process review. Anything else?
I'd like to make a motion to end this meeting.
I second
I
that.
second.
We all do, whatever.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed?
No, she's delayed.
No, I'm not.
Good night.
All right, the motion is carries. We adjourned. Thank
Bye,
y'all.
Be
Bye,
safe,
everybody.
Stay healthy.
You too.
Bye.